Welcome to The Learner. We are so thrilled to have you with us for today's deep dive.
Yes, glad to be here. We've got a really great one today.
We really do. It is just wild to me that on any given Tuesday, you can walk into a trendy health food store and see people dropping like 10, maybe $15 on a tiny little 2-ounce bottle of some neon-colored detox shot.
Oh, absolutely.
We are so obsessed with biohacking our way to better health right now. We've got complex sports drinks, specialized teas, customized probiotic blends.
And it's a massive modern industry, right? It's largely built on this assumption that optimal human health is a contemporary invention. We tend to view medicine and wellness as things formulated purely in modern laboratories.
Which completely ignores human history. I mean, if you look closely, the healthiest ancient populations weren't waiting around for lab-synthesized vitamins. They were already prescribing these highly specific, biologically active tonics.
Right.
And they hid this peer-reviewed pharmacology right in plain sight, inside ancient poetry, religious texts, cultural rituals.
Exactly. The texts of antiquity aren't merely symbolic stories or spiritual allegories.
Right.
In many practical ways, they served as survival manuals. They were basically the medical encyclopedias for the people of that time, encoding crucial medical data so it would survive across generations.
And our mission today is to decode that data. We are analyzing a truly fascinating YouTube video by the channel Homestead Roots, and it's titled 20 Biblical Drinks That Will Heal You Instantly.
It's a great source.
It really is. Now, to be crystal clear from the jump, our goal here isn't to look at this through a religious lens or endorse any theological viewpoint or take any political side. Our mission is strictly to extract the surprising modern science validating these ancient beverages.
Because it turns out these weren't just nice things to sip with dinner. They were the functional, heavy-hitting medicines of the ancient world.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Well, let's start right at the absolute foundation of human survival, which is daily hydration. Before you can even begin to think about treating complex diseases or optimizing longevity, you have to be able to drink water without getting a life-threatening bacterial infection.
Which we totally take for granted today.
Oh, entirely. In a world without modern water treatment plants or chlorine, drinking water was a daily high-stakes game of roulette.
Which brings us to the first massive surprise from our source, the drink called Pascha.
Yes.
So, in the biblical narrative of the crucifixion, specifically in the book of Matthew, Jesus is offered vinegar to drink. And I think most people, myself included, have always read that as a profound act of cruelty, like adding insult to a horrific injury.
That's the common interpretation, but the historical context reveals a completely different reality. Pascha, which is essentially vinegar diluted with water, was the standard daily ration of the Roman legions.
Wow.
Yeah, these were incredibly tough, pragmatic men marching through unsanitary conditions, and they actively chose to drink vinegar. And modern microbiology actually shows us why.
Right, because apple cider vinegar and wine vinegar both contain acetic acid.
Precisely. And acetic acid fundamentally alters the environment of the gut. It lowers the pH, making your digestive tract highly acidic.
Which bacteria hate.
Exactly. It creates an inhospitable environment for dangerous pathogens. Studies confirm that acetic acid actively suppresses the growth of E. coli and Salmonella.
That's incredible.
So by adding just a small amount of vinegar to their water canteens, Roman soldiers were essentially sanitizing their water supply from the inside out.
Wow. But the biological effects didn't stop at merely preventing dysentery, did they?
No, not at all.
Because clinical trials today show that drinking diluted vinegar before a meal measurably lowers post-meal blood sugar spikes.
All right.
Especially for people dealing with insulin resistance. It actually delays gastric emptying. So glucose enters your bloodstream at this slow, manageable trickle rather than a massive wave.
Which is huge for sustained energy.
Honestly, when you think about the modern trend of taking expensive apple cider vinegar shots for gut health, Roman soldiers were basically the original gut health influencers, purely out of gritty battlefield pragmatism.
They really were. I mean, they observed a direct cause and effect. When we drink this sour water, we don't die of dysentery, and we can march longer without crashing.
It's just brilliant.
And there's another brilliant example of this intuitive ancient microbiology, the famous phrase, "a land flowing with milk and honey."
Oh yeah, that phrase appears constantly in Scripture. But the source points out a crucial distinction regarding the ingredients here.
Right. It's not what we think of today.
No, they weren't talking about the clear, shelf-stable syrup sitting in a plastic bear at the grocery store.
Yeah.
This was raw, unheated honey dissolved in water.
And that heating part is key. Heating honey past about 40 degrees Celsius destroys the very enzymes and volatile compounds that make it a medicine.
What's actually in the raw honey?
Well, raw honey contains a specific protein called defensin-1, which actively destroys bacteria. It even works against MRSA.
Wait, MRSA?
What?
Like the superbug?
Yeah, methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus. It's a modern superbug that practically laughs at conventional antibiotics. But defensin-1 can break it down.
That is wild. Plus, our source mentions that raw honey contains an enzyme that produces natural hydrogen peroxide.
Exactly.
So when you combine that with its incredibly low pH, using raw honey against an infection is like dropping bacteria into a hostile acidic desert where their cell walls literally melt.
It's a perfect description.
So dissolving that raw honey into water created an instantly bioavailable antimicrobial tonic. But, what about the milk part of the equation?
Right, the milk. It wasn't the pasteurized, homogenized cow's milk from an industrial dairy that we drink today. The milk of the ancient Middle East was primarily A2 goat's milk.
And our source breaks down why that matters.
Yeah.
Modern commercial milk mostly contains the A1 beta-casein protein, which human digestion often breaks down into an inflammatory peptide called BCM7.
Yes, which causes a lot of the digestive issues people associate with dairy today.
But A2 goat's milk completely lacks that inflammatory trigger. On top of that, it's packed with caprylic acid.
Which is fascinating. Caprylic acid is a fatty acid that literally punches holes in fungal cell membranes.
That is so cool. You combine that living probiotic goat's milk with the antimicrobial raw honey, and you have this incredibly sophisticated gut-healing elixir.
It's a phenomenal baseline for health, but, surviving a contaminated water supply or a mild stomach bug is one thing. How did ancient populations manage severe trauma?
Right, because they didn't have ibuprofen or sterile operating rooms.
Exactly. What did they do for acute pain, systemic inflammation, or heavy metal toxicity? To understand that, we have to look at the ancient spice trade.
Wait, I have to push back here.
Okay.
When we talk about the ancient spice trade in this context, the source brings up the gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh brought to the newborn Jesus.
Yes.
I always thought those were purely symbolic. Or at best, maybe they were just really expensive ancient perfumes to make a room smell nice. I mean, frankincense is a hard, brittle tree resin. How could a human stomach possibly digest a rock-hard resin to get any anti-inflammatory benefits?
What's fascinating here is the specific ancient preparation method. You don't eat the hard resin itself.
Oh, okay.
If you take food-grade boswellia resin, which is frankincense, and steep it in water overnight, the water-soluble medicinal compounds detach from the indigestible resin and dissolve into the liquid.
Oh, wow. And one of those compounds is AKBA, right? Acetyl-11-keto-beta-boswellic acid.
Yes, AKBA.
The clinical trial notes from our source on this are just incredible. AKBA directly inhibits an inflammatory enzyme called 5-LOX. And the 5-LOX pathway is essentially the biochemical factory in your body that churns out inflammation.
Drinking that overnight resin infusion systematically shuts down that inflammatory factory.
That's amazing.
It's the exact same pathway targeted by modern pharmaceutical drugs for osteoarthritis and asthma. They were drinking a targeted anti-inflammatory medication, but without the gastrointestinal side effects common to modern NSIs.
And myrrh operates on a similarly intense level. It contains compounds called sesquiterpenes. Myrrh was offered at both Jesus' birth and his crucifixion, and it is famously aggressively bitter.
Very bitter.
But that bitterness isn't a flaw in the flavor profile, is it? It's the actual mechanical trigger.
Right. The human body reacts to extreme bitterness by immediately ramping up the production of digestive enzymes and bile. It forces the entire gastrointestinal tract to wake up and start moving.
Wow.
Furthermore, myrrh acts as a broad-spectrum antiseptic. It's particularly effective against oral infections and gut parasites.
And we see that same medicinal pragmatism applied to everyday cooking spices. Take coriander and cumin.
Two staples?
In the book of Exodus, the miraculous survival food, manna, is explicitly compared to coriander seed. And coriander has profound medicinal properties. Animal studies have shown that it has anxiolytic effects.
Meaning it chemically reduces anxiety in the brain. The mechanism is so potent that studies compare its calming effects to the pharmaceutical drug diazepam.
Wait, like Valium?
Yes, exactly like that.
Yeah.
Coriander also binds to heavy metals like lead and mercury, mobilizing them from deep within body tissues so the liver can safely excrete them.
That is just wild. And cumin is equally impressive. Jesus mentions in the book of Matthew that cumin was so valuable, people literally tithed it.
Right, they gave 1/10 of it away as a religious offering.
Because cumin contains a volatile oil compound called cuminaldehyde. Modern research validates that cuminaldehyde actively lowers fasting blood sugar, improves cellular insulin sensitivity, and stimulates the salivary glands to radically reduce bloating.
It's powerful stuff, and we cannot ignore ginger, highly prized along the ancient trade routes. Ginger contains active compounds known as gingerols and shogels.
And these compounds are fascinating because they reduce inflammatory markers like TNF-alpha.
Yes.
TNF-alpha is basically a chemical alarm bell your body rings to trigger a massive inflammatory response. And ginger essentially muffles that bell so effectively that clinical trials show it matches ibuprofen milligram for milligram in providing pain relief.
It's incredible. So when you steep fresh ginger and stir in raw honey again, making sure the water isn't boiling so you don't destroy the honey's defensive enzymes, you are drinking a highly potent, pain-relieving powerhouse.
Which naturally leads us to the next phase of ancient health. Surviving acute trauma or an infection is vital. But what about the slow creep of aging?
Ah, yes.
How did these populations build long-term cardiovascular resilience, recover from deep tissue injuries, and extend their lifespans without modern longevity clinics?
Here's where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
Because when we talk about longevity today, we talk about blue zones and activating specific cellular proteins through intermittent fasting or expensive supplements.
Right.
But the ancient world was activating these exact same cellular pathways just through their daily dietary rhythm. Let's talk about the grape.
The vine was central to ancient agricultural life. Specifically, we're looking at unfermented dark grape juice and pomegranate juice.
Yes.
When dark grapes are pressed fresh with their skins included, the resulting liquid is heavily loaded with a polyphenol called resveratrol.
Resveratrol is basically the superstar of modern anti-aging research. It activates sirtuin proteins in the body.
And think of sirtuin proteins as the night shift janitors of your cells.
That's a great analogy.
When activated, they go to work repairing damaged DNA, cleaning up cellular waste, and directly extending the lifespan of the cell. And because it's unfermented grape juice, you get all that antioxidant repair work without the neurological and liver toxicity associated with alcohol.
Now, they did consume alcohol, but it was functionally different from modern binge drinking culture.
Right. Our source mentions Paul's advice in the New Testament book of 1 Timothy to use a little wine for your stomach's sake.
And that points to warm, spiced wine. In the ancient world, wine was significantly lower in alcohol, heavily diluted with water, and infused with medicinal botanicals like cinnamon, cloves, and black pepper.
So it served as a solvent, a vehicle to extract and deliver polyphenols and volatile spice compounds right into the bloodstream.
Exactly. It's the exact biochemical mechanism behind the famous French paradox.
Where certain populations have surprisingly low rates of heart disease despite eating rich diets.
Yes. The wine was used purposefully, in moderation, as a medicinal delivery system with food.
And we see that same intense focus on cardiovascular health with the pomegranate. There were 200 pomegranates carved onto the pillars of Solomon's temple.
It was a huge cultural symbol of abundance.
But biologically, it was a literal source of life. Pomegranates contain punicoladins, which are unique antioxidants found almost nowhere else in nature.
And the mechanism here is incredible. When you drink fresh pomegranate juice, your gut bacteria consume those punicoladins and metabolize them into a completely new compound called urolithin A.
Wait, your gut bacteria actually manufactures a new compound?
Yes. Urolithin A then enters your bloodstream and actively repairs your mitochondria, offering remarkable arterial health benefits.
It's basically a highly complex cardiovascular drug growing on a tree, provided your gut microbiome is healthy enough to perform the chemical conversion.
Which it goes back to the posca and the honey, right? Keeping the gut healthy.
Right. It all connects.
Now, for physical recovery from exhaustion or illness, they relied heavily on grains and legumes. The source analyzes the 5 barley loaves used in the biblical feeding of the 5,000 and the story of Esau trading his birthright for a bowl of lentil stew.
Barley water was the ultimate recovery drink of the ancient world. When you simmer whole, unhulled barley in water, you extract and concentrate its beta-glucan content.
And beta-glucan is a soluble fiber, but what it does inside the body is remarkable. It literally forms a thick, viscous gel in your digestive tract.
And because it forms this thick gel, It physically traps cholesterol and bile acids in your gut like a sponge, preventing them from entering your bloodstream.
It also slows the absorption of glucose to an absolute crawl. It's so medically effective that the FDA actually permits a specific validated health claim on foods containing high amounts of it.
That's crazy. And slow-cooked lentil broth operates on a similar principle of deep nutritional extraction, right?
Yes. By simmering lentils for hours, you break down the phytic acid that usually blocks mineral absorption and extract highly bioavailable iron, zinc, and potassium directly into the broth.
So it acts like a natural plant-based IV drip for someone recovering from an illness or blood loss.
Exactly.
Which brings us to wound healing. And this was a huge aha moment for me.
Me too.
In the book of Isaiah, King Hezekiah is dying from a severe necrotic skin ulcer. The prophet Isaiah orders a poultice of figs to be applied directly to the infection, and the king recovers. Modern science confirms that figs contain a proteolytic enzyme called physin.
And proteolytic literally means protein destroying. Physin acts like microscopic Pac-Man,
And I love it.
chemically digesting and breaking down dead necrotic tissue while leaving healthy tissue intact, which aggressively promotes wound healing.
Furthermore, when you steep figs in hot water to make an infusion, you extract dense minerals and pectin that coat and soothe intestinal inflammation.
Raisin water works on that same principle of water extraction. Raisins were the portable, shelf-stable energy blocks of the ancient world.
But if you soak them overnight in water, the water pulls tartaric acid and potassium bitartrate out of the grape skins. Drinking that water creates a potent liver detoxifying tonic that actively stimulates the liver to flush out toxins by ramping up bile production.
It fundamentally comes down to what water can pull out of a plant matrix. We see this with dates and almond milk too, which was the ultimate ancient energy drink.
If you were crossing the desert, these two foods were absolutely essential. Dates deliver incredibly rapid natural sugar, energy, glucose, and fructose directly to the cells.
And the physiological impact is so pronounced that clinical trials show eating dates in the late stages of pregnancy actually speeds up cervical dilation and eases delivery in pregnant women.
Wait, really? Just eating dates?
Yes, it enhances uterine muscle contraction.
That is amazing. And the raw almonds act as the perfect biochemical counterbalance. They provide slow-burning healthy fats, dense magnesium, and vitamin E, which entirely moderates the blood sugar response from the date.
So you don't get a massive insulin spike followed by a crash. You get sustained, perfectly leveled cellular fuel.
So what does this all mean? We've seen how they hydrated safely with acidic water, how they managed inflammation by shutting down the 5-LOX pathway, and how they built long-term cellular health with sirtuin-activating grapes.
Right.
But what happened when things got truly desperate? When they faced severe, chronic, or respiratory illnesses that threatened to wipe out a whole community?
This raises an important question about the limits of ancient medicine. Because when they needed a profound intervention, they turned to the most intense purification protocols available. They didn't have modern antibiotics or respirators, so they relied on heavily concentrated, highly volatile botanical compounds.
The perfect example from our source is hyssop. In Psalm 51, King David writes, "Purge me with hyssop and I shall be clean."
Yeah.
He's writing this after his deepest moral failure, reaching for the most powerful cleansing imagery he knows. And the science behind that imagery is staggering. Hyssop contains carvacrol and thymol.
And those are volatile organic compounds that are among the most powerful natural antiseptics and expectorants known to science. But the preparation method is everything here.
Right.
To get the medicinal benefit, hyssop was traditionally prepared as an 8-hour cold infusion. If you boil hyssop, the heat instantly vaporizes and destroys those fragile volatile oils.
They just evaporate right into the air.
Yep.
But by steeping the plant in cold water overnight, the water gently extracts the carvacrol and thymol without destroying them.
And when a sick person drinks that cold infusion, the compounds enter the bloodstream and actively break up sick bronchial mucus in the lungs while exhibiting direct antiviral activity against respiratory infections.
They were meticulously creating a targeted, plant-based antiviral drug. And we see the exact same pharmaceutical precision with the olive leaf.
We do.
The prophet Ezekiel spoke of trees with leaves for healing. We always focus on olive oil, but the leaves of the olive tree contain an incredibly potent compound called oleuropein.
Oleuropein is a massive antiviral and antibacterial agent. It actually interferes with the ability of viruses to replicate and spread.
Clinical studies show it works effectively against influenza viruses, rotavirus, and even certain herpes viruses.
Finally, when they needed to heal the physical toll of stress on the nervous system, they created specific calming elixirs. The prophet Jeremiah speaks of the watchful almond tree, which is the first tree to blossom in the harshness of early spring.
They would take raw almond milk, which is rich in magnesium and vitamin E to protect brain cell membranes, and steep it with medicinal herbs like chamomile or lavender.
That magnesium physically blocks stimulating neurotransmitters from overfiring in the brain.
So it was a highly sophisticated evening elixir designed specifically to restore the central nervous system, lower cortisol, and calm severe anxiety.
Generations of careful human observation, watching what worked, tracking who healed faster, achieved results that our modern double-blind clinical trials are only just now confirming.
It's just brilliant. The methodology was certainly different centuries of trial and error instead of microscopes and petri dishes, but the underlying pharmacology is identical.
And there's one uncompromising rule that applied to all of these ancient remedies, which modern consumers often forget.
Which
The
is,
quality of the source material matters above all else.
you absolutely cannot overstate this point. The ancient world relied exclusively on raw, unfiltered, unheated food-grade ingredients.
Right.
The honey was raw and teeming with living bacterial enzymes. The vinegar was unpasteurized and contained the living mother culture. The tree resins were pure and unadulterated.
And if you go to a typical grocery store today and buy highly processed, heat-pasteurized honey or synthetic frankincense fragrance oil, you are getting zero biological benefit. The healing magic is strictly in the living, volatile compounds.
Recognizing this requires a fundamental shift in how we view our food and our environment. These ancient populations didn't arbitrarily separate their diet from their medicine cabinet. They were one and the same entity. I want to encourage you listening to this right now to look at your own pantry and spice rack differently. Think about that neon-colored sports drink or that heavily marketed biohack detox tea we talked about at the very beginning.
You might not need it.
No. Maybe the next time you feel a chest cold coming on or your digestion is wrecked from travel, you don't need a lab-created supplement in a plastic bottle. Maybe you reach for an 8-hour hyssop cold infusion or a raw ginger and honey brew specifically calibrated to muffle your body's inflammatory alarms. The most potent solutions might literally be sitting in your kitchen right now.
And that reality should force us to reconsider the timeline of human knowledge. We've just seen how these ancient texts essentially encoded highly advanced, geographically specific pharmacology into their poetry, their parables, and their cultural rituals to guarantee the knowledge survived.
It's profound.
Which leaves us with this final thought. If purge me with hyssop is actually disguised instructions for a potent bronchial expectorant, what other supposedly superstitious rituals, ancient myths, or indigenous traditions from cultures around the globe are actually just lost, highly advanced medical science, simply waiting for a modern microscope to finally decode them?